how I started looking at investigating this creature um, was when COVID hit. I spent a lot of time at a lot of these parks in the area. I did a little traveling too. Once I started to uh, see what these things were, but I would take stones like this and smaller ones, and I don't know if you can see the lines. See the lines on it? But anyway, so imagine if I started to imagine if these were like clay, and if you just took those lines and unfolded it, just unfold each section, what would it what would it look like? And what it would look like is a coiled up creature. This one would unfold to be about 10 inches or so. About 10 inches, I'd say. It doesn't look like it, but there's a lot to that. It's how it's coiled up. Um, so anyway, that takes a lot of mental energy, but I think because of my background in metrology, 3D modeling, engineering, reverse engineering, also fabricating, I just tended to just want to look at the shape and understand what this thing is. Well, thankfully I didn't have to do a lot of that uh, to uh, to understand, what this creature unfolded to be, because just the more you look, more examples you find, um, it shows you the creature, what it was shaped like. All of them were decaying before they turned to stone or wood or whatever material, because fluorine will turn you into anything, uh, depending on what it just went through, the hardened version of it. Um, so anyway, I started with small stones and started seeing patterns, and that's my background: patterns, shapes, parts, assemblies, layers. Um, so anyway, I started building an idea of what this creature was. At some point, and for a while there, I had no idea what this creature was. I figured, oh, it must be already discovered, but just people don't know that it was turned to this material. But the more I looked, the more I investigated, I realized that um, this is some kind of serpent, and it tends to coil. So one day, on my phone, I typed in coiling serpent in Google, and what popped up? The word Leviathan. And I thought, no, what? Could this be Leviathan of the Bible? Job chapter 41? I had to go and look at the description, and so that was in the back of my mind all the time, for that time forward. And I started to see evidence that matched that description, such as white hair. Um, yeah, white hair. White hair coming out of limestone. In other videos, I showed examples of that. They also find white hair between the blocks and the pyramids. They say it was human hair, but no. How can human hair be in between each block? Um, and of course, I I've seen this example. Of course, the Bible says they had white hair too. Their teeth, I didn't really know anything about that until I saw some examples of teeth and realized that they're the same shape as megalodon teeth. I started to see they fold. They're five folds usually. Sometimes they coil up, sometimes they fold up, and they have usually five folds. Um, and the scales very tight. Um, what else? The teeth, the hair. Breathe fire. Well, the head's being separated from the body actually is evidence of diberane. The head being separated after they die, as they started to decay. The dibrane's still in their body, I guess. So whether they're blown off or separate, they separate some way. Because the diberane is so powerful, when it hits air, they may have blown off. I can imagine floodwaters, these things floating on the top, covering the top, maybe bumping into the ark. But at some point, one by one, smallest one to the biggest one, their heads start blowing off. But not on all of them, because I see many examples that the whole thing is there intact. But I just wanted to mention that's how I got started on that. I started in Pennsylvania. I was a hunter, and then I started getting into other stuff, photography, metal detecting, stagecoach roads, just looking at the ground all the time, looking at creeks. And then I discovered something that was in stone, and then I found a bunch of things that were stone, but they were clearly bones. Some were bones of a different animal, or a section, one definite section, and maybe some other pieces. And then, this one rock, it had the whole creature coiled up, and I didn't know what it was. I took what I had down to Carnegie Museum near Pittsburgh, and they came out and said, the first thing they said was, where'd you get your PhD? PhD? They knew that, I'm pretty sure, but they just wanted to put me in my place. You don't have one, we do. They proceeded to just discount everything because it just didn't fit the model. Pennsylvania was never underwater, on and on. So, what do I know? I said, okay. But then I came down to Florida, and I find these creatures everywhere. And once I got started, I realized what was going on. And that in this event, the deluge, the flood, the great flood, right after that, all these creatures were laying all over the place as the waters are pulled away. Then the fluorine comes up. So that's why you find some smooth and some rough, because water moving on them, smoothing them out, but then they turn to whatever hardened material. And so anyway, that's where I'm at. Hopefully we'll get ready to publish something soon about that, and then of course I'll be republishing the fiction that I did years ago. Made some corrections, fixed some things, added a little content, and we'll see how it does. So anyway, have a good day.